So in today's video, we are going to build a support chat with React that's going to impress users and make them want to chat with you whenever they visit your website. So let's say that you have, an online portfolio and you want to impress job recruiters and make them want to talk to you whenever they visit your website. Or maybe you have a startup and you need a creative way to collect user feedback or even their email addresses for something like a mailing list. In either one of these situations, a support chat that's customized, personalized, and powerful could be the perfect solution. So that's exactly what we're going to build. In this video, it starts off with a support button that's personalized, shows a little bit about yourself, and will make them want to click. Then there will be a customized, pretty, and powerful email form that you can use for something like collecting email addresses. Then we will use a bit of React animations and transitions to go into a powerful yet delightful chat experience where users can send you messages. Then this is going to be paired with an admin dashboard where you will be able to chat with the users in real time while they're sending you messages. This support chat is actually so powerful, it's the same support chat I use on Chat Engine to chat with my 20,000 users. And for any of the React students out there, we're going to learn a lot in this video. We're going to learn about React.js, of course, but also REST APIs, DOM manipulation, React's contexts API, a lot about React animations, and some tricks, also environment variables, and the Chat Engine framework. We're going to be able to build this project in about 1 hour and at a leisurely pace. So with that in mind, grab a coffee if you need one, come back, and from here on out, let's get started. So to get started, we're actually going to download a demo project, which I made, and we'll be adding support chat to it. The reason is because if we want a pretty demo project at the end of this video, we're going to have to write some website code that doesn't actually regard support chat. So I just went ahead and did that work for us. So if you go to the link in the description of this video, you get brought to this page right here. And if you click on the code dropdown and go to download zip, you can download the zip. I put it on my desktop and expanded it. You get this folder. And if you drag it into VS Code, voila, you have the website open. So let's expand this window here. The first thing we need to do is run yarn or npm install to make sure that we have all the dependencies before we run this app. And then the next thing is let's run yarn start. Now this is actually going to kickstart the demo project which I made. So if we actually go to this next page here and we go to localhost 3000 and click enter, voila, we get that pretty purple page which I showed you in the demo. And then if you actually go to the support route, you're going to see this empty page here that just says support admin. So let's walk through the code to get a bit familiar with it before we start building support chat. To start, at the top level of the source directory, we have an index.js file. It's extremely simple. All it is if you're on the support route, render that support admin component. Otherwise, render that home page, which will have support chat inside. So let's go to the support admin page. You can guess what it looks like right now. It's just that empty page with support admin written in the top. Very simple component. The home page, a little bit more interesting, but still very simple. We just have a div where we're taking a bunch of HTML code and just injecting it in. All the HTML code is down here. You don't have to know anything about it. And then the interesting thing is we got this support engine component at the bottom, and it's getting imported from a neighboring directory. The support engine component is the name of that support chat which we'll be building in this video. So let's go to that folder right now. Within it, two little things to start. We have an empty support engine div, and we also have a styles.js file. These will be all the styles which we bring into our support chat so that it's pretty out of the box. And if you want to customize the look and feel, you will go into this file here and start customizing that CSS. And the last thing to note is that we've already imported support engine into the home page. As a matter of fact, if you go all the way to the bottom, you should see support engine right there. So we're familiar with the structure of this project. So let's open up the support engine directory and start building out this support chat. To get started, let's add that stylish little support button in the bottom right of the website. So what we're going to do is make a whole new component, in this case a file, and I'm going to call it avatar.js. So new file.js. And what we'll do is we'll import it within the support engine div and declare it as a replacement for this text here. So we do that, enter, bracket, avatar, and that bracket. And then we can start building out this component. So import React, and we're actually going to use state as well. So from React, and then we're actually going to import the styles too. So import squiggly bracket styles from /styles. It's right beside. So, and then let's start building out this component. So const avatar equals props, and that's a function, so arrows, and what it will do to start is just start rendering divs. So we need a wrapper div, and then the first div we need is the one that says, hey, it's Adam, write our personalized little message, and then the second one is actually just going to be that button. So I'm going to do this with a close tag. And let's start by importing the styles to make that little stylish button appear. So style, and if you use two squiggly braces, this lets us merge multiple style objects into one. So two squiggly braces, break it, and then just do dot styles, and then in this case it's chat with me button. And let's just see how this looks to start. Of course we need to export it, so export default avatar. Save, go to the right, click refresh. Oh, I know what's up. We need to put it in the bottom right. So if we do at the top wrapper div, if we do position fixed, bottom 24px, and right 24px, now we're going to be able to see it right here. There's a little button that we're going to start clicking. Awesome. Now, what we want to do, like what we had in the support demo, is add some hover-based animation. So whenever we hover, it looks a certain way, and whenever we're not hovering, it looks a different way. So let's create a hover state variable. Const array hovered, set hovered, and then equals use state false. So basically this is a hovered variable which we set to false by default, and then this function is going to be able to change its value whenever we want. You can probably guess this one right here. Whenever the mouse enters this component, so on mouse leave and on mouse enter, we're going to have two functions. So when the mouse enters, the first thing we're doing is setting hover to true, and when the mouse leaves, the opposite. And then the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to create another style object that depends on whether or not it's hovered. And in this case, we're going to change the border. So whenever it's hovered, we're going to have it look one way, otherwise a different way. So when we're not hovering, on the right-hand side, let's add 4px, solid, and then I have to remember this one here. I think the code is 7A39E0. Cool. And when we're hovering it, we want it to look a little bit lighter and a little bit thinner, so 1px for the border, solid, and then this is going to be a different code, F9, F0, FF. Let's click enter. Cool. Sweet. It's a thick purple border, and when we hover, it's a thin one. Awesome, but there's no animation. It's kind of clunky, right? So what we can do here is add a class name that's called transition-3. And this is really cool. If we actually go into index.css, we have this class name here that's called transition3. And what it means is whenever we change the CSS of a component with this class name, we don't do it immediately. We do it over 3.3 seconds and we ease into it. And this is how it looks. Now it's gradual. And it's not linear, it eases into it. So there's some really cool styles whenever you bring in this class in any component for the rest of this project. Really awesome. So why don't we do the same thing for that little support message on the left-hand side, right when we say, hey, it's Adam, that little warm introduction. Break this div, style, 2 brackets, enter again. Styles, dot in this case, we're going to call it avatar hello. I've already preset some stuff. And instead of changing the border in this case, whether or not we're hovering, we're going to change the opacity. So whenever we're hovering on it, we'll set the opacity to 1. So hovered question mark, then 1. Otherwise, when we're not hovering on it, set it to 0. And we'll have to add that same class name, transition3. Sweet. So let's see how this looks. Ooh, it's easing into it. It's looking pretty good. Awesome. The last thing we want to do, and this is some foresight, is we're going to take this, cut it or copy it, and replace it with props.style. And then what we're going to do in the index file is we're going to pass it in as a prop. So pass in style equals squiggly braces and paste that object. So 2 squiggly braces, whole object. The reason is because we're going to render this avatar component in multiple places. So if we hard code the address to the bottom right, then when we render it a second time, it's still going to be in the bottom right, which we don't want. So what we're doing is we're abstracting it away so the next time that we use this component, we can put it wherever we want in the website, which is very, very important. So here you go. We set the style. Great progress. We got a nice little avatar that makes users want to click on it. You know, it's got a personalized message with whatever you want to write, your own image, which you can update in style.js. You just replace this URL here with whatever you want. In this case, it's my face. Now let's get into building that landing page with the email form. To start implementing the support chat window, we are going to need to create a separate component and then render it or make it visible whenever we click on this button right here. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to create actually a new folder and we're going to call it support window. And this is where we're going to put, of course, the support window. And inside, do index.js and let's start building out this component. We're going to make it very basic to start. So import React from React. And then of course import styles because I wrote a bunch of style for this already. And then let's start building this component. So const support window equals props. That's a function that returns, and in this case, again, a div. And let's put in that style. So break it, enter style, styles support window. Awesome. And then the other thing is we're going to render whether or not it's visible based on whether or not we pass down a visible prop. So enter. So again, opacity makes it either visible or invisible. And if prop.visible is true, we're going to set the opacity to 1, otherwise 0 again. And we don't really need to add anything else at the moment. We're just going to export this. So we have this basic component here. It's got some styles and you'll see that nice pretty support window on the bottom right. And then we're going to make it either visible or invisible depending on whether or not we determine so with the props. And we have to do a bit of stuff on our end now. So within this avatar, within the support engine component, all we have is this avatar now, but we really need to render the support window if that button has been clicked. Right? So what we need to do is actually create a state variable that determines whether or not it's been clicked. So go to use state and we'll do const and we'll make visible and set visible equal to use state. And this will determine whether or not that support window is visible, and that depends on whether or not we've clicked this avatar right here. So we'll default it to false, of course. And then when we click on the avatar, of course, we want to set this visible variable to true. And then, of course, we want to import that support window, right? So if we import support window, that component, we want to render it. And again, we want to pass in that visible prop. And then end it. Now, one thing is actually this avatar doesn't have a on-click functionality. So if we go into it, what we need to do is whenever we click on this avatar component, so on a click, we trigger a function, and if props.onClick exists, then trigger the prop function. So we only trigger on the prop onClick if it's present. And what that will look like is it's going to set the visible variable to true. We pass that into support window, and we can see here that it's actually going to be visible if that prop visible is set to true. So let's see how this looks. Click refresh. Hello. Perfect. I think the one thing that's missing, of course, is transition, right? So do we want to set it to transition 3 or transition 5? I'm going to set it to transition 5. Make it a little bit slower, right? Again, we have in index.css transition 5, which is just a little bit slower than transition 3. So how does that look? Slow. But when you click away, it doesn't go away. So what we're going to do now is actually use DOM manipulation to make this go away whenever we click outside of it. So now let's start programming the DOM so we can add event listeners to whenever a user clicks outside of the support window component. This will let us programmatically make it invisible whenever the user navigates to other parts of the website. So what we'll need to do is go back to the top level support engine, so just support engine /index, and we're going to have to use something called reference variables. So import 2 more things, use ref and use effect from React. And the first thing that we're going to actually do is we're going to use something called a ref prop and just call it ref. So ref equals squiggly braces ref. And then, not to sound too repetitive, we're going to make something called const ref, which is that reference object. We will default it to null, so use ref brackets null. So right now we are storing ref as a reference variable to this entire component. And now we're going to use effect. Use effect basically just triggers functions whenever certain events occur in components. So in this case, we are only going to trigger this function if that reference variable is changed. And what we're going to have in here, and I'm just going to paste it, is a function called handle click outside, and it's going to trigger whenever the mouse clicks down. So document, which is native to React, add event listener. Whenever the mouse clicks down, trigger this function here. And all we do is check the ref that's current and see if the click that we clicked on, the event target of mouse down, is outside of this reference. If it's outside of this reference, i.e. the user clicked on something outside of support engine, we set visible to false. And then this last thing here is we just have a return function that removes the event listener. And this is similar to like component will unmount. So whenever the component's about to unmount, like you exit out of the website or you refresh the page or you just go to a different page, we're just going to remove the event listener because it would create a memory leak, which we don't want. So let's click save and just see how this looks. We click refresh, you click on it, it looks lovely. Let's click outside and it goes away. Perfect. So now we have a fully functioning support window that's responsive depending on whether or not we're addressing it. So now let's fill it with a very pretty email form so that we can start collecting users' email. To get started on building the email form, we're going to create a separate web form component, and it's actually going to be pretty simple, but just require writing a lot of code. So there's no easy way to do it. Let's just get started. If you go into the support window folder, beside index, we'll make a new file, emailform.js. So emailform.js, enter. And let's just go top down and start writing out everything that we'll need. So import React, and we'll also need use state from React. And then we'll also need to import styles, of course. Next, we're going to actually install some icons for loading. So if you go into a new terminal in the same working directory, do yarn add or npm install ant design icon. So @ ant-design /icons plural. Enter. And that will install everything that we need. And we'll keep moving on. So import squiggly braces from @ant. Let's see if it loads. Design /icons, and we are going to pull in the loading outlined. There we go. And then last but not least, import avatar. Exactly. And this is where that abstracting that style part is going to pay dividends, because now we can render it in multiple parts of the website, in this case the email form. Now let's start building out the component. Props. And then we are going to start using state variables. So const, we're going to store the email for collecting emails. And we're going to need to use useState and default it to an empty string. Great. And we're also going to need to set loading. So when we submit the form, we want to make sure that it's loading while we send that information. So loading and set loading, and we'll default this to false. Right? We start off not loading, but when we submit, that submission is loading, so we will activate it to true then. Now let's just start returning the JSX. Now it's actually pretty easy because we've preloaded a lot of the styles. So let's go into this first div, the wrapper, style, double braces, enter again, triple dots, and we're gonna actually go styles dot, I think it's email form window. Great. And then we're actually gonna create another style object that will animate later. So height, just set it to 100%, and then opacity to 1. Great. So we have an email form window that's basically going to occupy that entire window that we created earlier, and it's going to be completely visible. Great. Now let's add that cool little diagonal purple line. So what you need to do for that one is create a div, make a style object for it, height, we're going to set it to 0px, and then within it we're going to create another div with a close tag and add style equal to styles.stripe. And let's see how this looks so far. Of course, we're going to have to import it and use it. So if we go here, back to the support window /index, import email form from /email form. And of course, we didn't export it, so this will give us a compilation error. So we got to go export default. And it seems like this is taking a second to load, so I'm just going to keep progressing while that's loading. So, oh, here we go. Whatever. Okay, so let's keep going. We've built out the stripe. The next thing that we're going to need to do is actually the loading page and the loading icon. So create another div, and this one will actually be close tag. And let's just start bringing in the styles and transitions. So class name, we're going to do transition 5. -5, and then we'll also do the style object, so style, and we're going to be merging multiple style objects again, so style dot loading div, and then also custom style object for animation. We're going to do z-index, so this will determine whether it's at the front of the page or behind the form. If it's loading, we're going to bring it to the front, so set z-index to 10, otherwise set it to -1 actually, and that will put it behind the web form. The second one is opacity, and if it's loading, we're going to set the opacity to 0.33. It's going to be translucent, and you'll see how that looks later, and then otherwise set it to 0. So let's click enter, and it seems like everything's loading now, so let's go back to this website. Okay, it looks pretty fine, except we're not importing this component yet. So let's just go back to support window /index and import it and put it in the JSX. Now let's see how it looks. Awesome, we got that cool little diagonal line in the middle of the form. So just a quick recap, we are building this email form component. We're bringing it into the support window /index. And if we drill down into it, all we have right now is this kind of wrapper with this stripe component, that cool purple diagonal line, and then we're working on the loading stuff right now. The other thing that we need to do is make that loading icon spin. So loading outlined, again, close tag, and we're going to have to create a bunch of style for this as well. So first of all, class name is also going to be transition 5, and then more style, so // for merging, styles.loading icon, perfect, and then some more custom objects for animations. The first one's z-index again. I think it's actually the exact same value, so let's just bring this one over here. Perfect. Same with actually opacity, but instead of 0.33, it's going to be either 1 or 0. And then we have just a few other ones. So font size, I think it's 82 px, cool. And then we have a few other ones. So top, we're going to set that to calc. 50% minus 41, so 50% minus 41. If you're guessing why it's minus 41 px, it's because 82 divided by 2 is 41. So I'll put it right in the middle, and the same thing with left. And this is going to put it right in the middle. Now actually, let's do something as an experiment. Default this to true, and see how it looks now. Perfect, you get this translucent page with this spinning icon right in the middle. So when we submit the web form, we want it to load a bit, and we want to show the user that it's loading in an eloquent way. So this is exactly how we'll do it. Set this back to false so we can hide that stuff. Amazing. This is setting it to hidden, which is great, and it's working. Now let's build the actual web form. Start with a div wrapper. Let's put some style in place. So position, absolute. I think we're going to need height and width 100%. So it's going to occupy that entire page. And then the last thing is text align center. Great. And then within it, we're going to start bringing in the avatar at the top. So it's going to be our image. It's going to make it look really personal. So let's just bring in the styles that we need. So style. And we're going to put the position of this one to be relative. We're going to put left to, again, calc 50% minus 44 px. And then we're also going to put top to 10%. And this is going to put it right at the middle near the top. Perfect. That cool little avatars are right at the top. Sweet. Now we want to display that little message like, hey, welcome to my support chat. So what we need to do is, again, make another div. This one's really easy, style, and then we're going to do styles dot top text. I've already set what we need for it, and then we're just going to say welcome to my support. And then I added a break, so a closed break tag in the middle of it. So you can see welcome to my support. I'll add the emoji later. I really like the yellow-purple contrast. I just don't want to find it right now for the interest of time. Let's get to the next part, the email form. So this one's actually a form component. This is interesting. And we're going to start with the necessary stuff. So on submit, we'll set it to this, a function, e, the event, and then handle submit dash e, or in brackets e. And let's create this function right now. So if we go to the top, function, handle submit, and then let's think about what we need to do. We need to take an event, and then we need to do something with it. So let's do event.prevent default. This is going to stop the page from reloading automatically. Then set loading to true, and maybe do something like console.log the email value. So, you know, send, let's just do the email variable right here. So sending email, exactly. So ideally when we're manipulating the form, we're setting the email to the latest value. So when they click submit, we'll have that email variable stored in state. Awesome. Let's keep powering away for the interest of time. So the next thing that we're going to need is some style. So let's work on the style now. Position relative in this case. We'll do width 100%. So we take up the whole width. And then the last thing that we're going to do is top. And I hard-coded this one 19.75%. That's what I thought was the perfect middle ground. And then let's add the input. Close tag this one. First thing that we're going to do is the style. So style styles dot, I think it's email input. Great. The next thing is onChange is going to be, it's going to take an event, so E again, and then it's going to be set email e.target.value. Perfect. And then the last thing is a placeholder. I'm just going to set your email. Let's see how this looks. Perfect, right in the middle. The slash goes right through it, looking really, really eloquent. Now, the bottom text, and I think this is the last thing that we need, is a div. Again, very simple. Enter your email, break, new line, to get started. And then the style, styles.bottom text, enter. Cool. So we did a whole lot here. In short, really, we created a web form. We added a stripe in the background, and really there's nothing special here. We just had to write a bunch of JSX with some custom stylings in order to get this web form ready for submission. So in the next part, we're going to start introducing chat engine in the APIs. So when somebody fills out their email, a chat user gets created, and we can start linking this to a chat room so they can send and receive messages. So let's get started. So to take a user's email and then create a chat user and a chat for them, we're going to have to take a step back and strategize. What we're going to do is within the support window, when a user hands in their email and we create a chat user and a chat for them, we want to make this invisible and then make a chat feed visible. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using some state variables in the support window component to manage whether or not the email form is visible or the chat feed is visible. The second thing that we're going to need to do is REST APIs. So when a user submits their emails and this handle submit function triggers, we need to start making REST API calls in order for this to happen. So let's start working on the REST APIs. For the REST APIs, we're going to go to chatengine.io. Chatengine.io is a suite of REST APIs and chat UI components so that you can build chat experiences quickly. It's totally free, so no need to pull out a credit card or whatever. Log in or sign up if you need it. Put in your email and your password. I already have an account. And then we're going to create a new project. So in this case, I'm going to call it Support Engine. We're going to get a project ID and a private key, and we're going to set these as environment variables now. So I'm going to take the project ID and go into your project and create a .env.local file. And then I'm going to start setting these values. So the first one is react_app_ce_project_id. You need the React app part at the beginning or else it will not get recognized by the React framework. So this is the value I set. The second one is the private key. This is used to create and destroy users. So pretty sensitive. I recommend only deploying with a private key if you're hosting the private key on your server. So we could potentially get into that in a later video. But in this video, I'm just calling it CE private key. Enter. To apply environment variables, and I got super frustrated by this in the past, you need to restart the server. I didn't know that, so I couldn't see the environment variables when I was writing code, and I got super frustrated. So this is going to save you a ton of head banging, so you're welcome. So what did we just do? We created a chat engine project, right? And we took the project ID and the private key, and we added them as environment variables to the project. The last thing that we actually want to do is just create a chat user, because when users sign up to the website and they want to chat with you, you need to have a chat user yourself. So go ahead and create one. I'm just going to use my full name as my username. I'm going to set a dummy password, and then I'm just going to put my email in there. Why not? I'm going to leave the avatar for later and just create that. So I have a chat user now. Perfect. So we have identified the project ID and the private key. We're aware that we're going to have to build some state management. So now let's start calling these REST APIs so that when somebody gives us their email, we create them as a user and we also create a chat for them too. The first thing that we're going to do actually is add Axios. So do yarn or npm install, yarn add or npm install, and then Axios. think I already have it. Apparently not. And then what we can do is start making these API calls. So function get or create user, and the other one is get or create chat. Great. And to call these REST APIs, Chat Engine actually has REST API docs, and they're really convenient. So if we want to find get or create user, you can just find it in the user section, and let's start building out these API calls. So it's a put request to this route. We need this body and these headers. So let's just start porting all that data over. In get or create user, let's just import Axios. And then call Axios.put the route, which I just copy and pasted. Then we need to pass data. So they tell us example data. So in this case, username and secret right there. So we'll paste that in. I'm actually going to enrich it a little bit and add the email field too, because I know users have emails. So email. And we're going to just set all these fields to email. So their username will be their email, their secret will even be their email, and their email will of course be their email. And then the last thing we want to do is just add headers. And that object will take a private -key and we'll set it to process.env. And then I'm going to copy and paste that over because it's long. Great. The last thing we want to do is when this API call goes through and the user gets created, we want to make a callback function to basically call the next API. So .then response, that will be a function that calls a callback and passes in r.data. And then we don't even really need to do any error handling here. We'll just assume that it works. And we'll do the exact same thing with get or create chat. Cool. So if we go to get or create chat, we go to my chats, get or create chat. Different routes right here. I think you just replace users with chats. So that's cool. The data looks different, so we'll definitely replace the data. And then also, I think we can set the private key as this and keep it that way. The first thing, I don't think we need a title, and we'll set it to a direct chat. So it's just going to be between the user visiting the website and us. And then set your username that you have in the back end. So in this case, it was my full name, and then that user's email. Looks like we didn't pass in a callback here, so we'll just pass in that callback. It looks like we're good to go. And then last but not least, let's rope these two API calls together. So the first one is get or create user. And when that user gets created, we're going to call get or create chat. And when that chat gets created, then we'll take the chat and just do console.log and then just do, I don't know, success and the chat. And we're doing this in handle submit. So let's see how this looks actually. If we go here, refresh, let's get the console out too. Open it up, bob@mail.com for example. It looks like a success. Sweet. If we actually go into the project now, I bet you if we click refresh, voila, Bob's right here, and there should be a chat between the two of them. If we go to chat members, you can see that those two chat members are connected. So that's sweet. The last thing, of course, is, hey, look, this is still loading, but we're totally good to go. We got all the chat data right here. So let's start adding those animations that we talked about earlier just to hide this form and start rendering the chat feed. Cool. What we're going to do is go back to that top level component, and we're going to start adding some state variables to determine whether or not we're rendering the email form or the chat feed. So if we're using state variables, use state, pretty self-explanatory, and let's start storing that stuff. So user and set user equal that use state and default the user object to null. And we'll do the same thing with chat. Great. Now, when a chat or a user gets created, let's make sure that we have a prop callback to be able to set that in the higher level component. So when we get a user, we'll just do set user to user. Do the same thing with chat, chat, chat. chat. Great. And then the last thing is let's determine if this is visible. So if the user hasn't been created yet or the chat hasn't been created yet, we still want this email form to be visible. So let's just implement that into Boolean logic. So if user is equal to null or the chat is equal to null, then this should still be visible. Otherwise, let's make it invisible. So the first thing is let's make those callbacks to set the user and the chat when they get created. So getter create user. As soon as that's done, let's do props.set user. Let's do the same thing with chat. So take that chat, props.set chat, and that should make that prop come back down as invisible. So and then when that prop is determined as visible to false, i.e. this should be invisible now, props.visible true, keep it 100, otherwise make it 0%. Same thing with opacity. If the email form window is determined as visible, keep opacity to 1, otherwise make it 0, right? Remember we abstracted this style way earlier in the video. This is just me being a wizard. Already have implemented this project, so saving you a lot of time by telling you exactly what parts we needed to animate. So if we click save, I bet you this will work. We go to bob@mail.com. Boom, that chat form's now hidden, or that email form's now hidden. Now we can start rendering the chat feed and allowing Bob to talk with you. Let's go. So a user has just given you their email address, and we have created a chat user for them. We have created a chat room for them, but the last part is that we need that chat feed to render. So what we're actually going to do is use Chat Engine's Chat UI components to build an experience within this window where they can send you messages. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is within the support window folder, we're going to make another JavaScript file and we're going to call it chatengine.js because this chat feed is going to be powered by Chat Engine. And what we're going to do is actually go back to the support window.index file back here. And when this email form gets rendered as invisible, that's exactly when we need to make the chat feed visible. So what we'll do is we'll import this Chat Engine component and we'll set a visible prop to the opposite of this. And then we'll pass in the chat and the user objects so that they have the necessary data to render everything we need. So let's get started doing this. We'll make that neighboring import into Chat Engine. And then we'll start building out this component. So close tag. The first thing we wanted to do, as mentioned, was visible. And we'll set this to the opposite of what we have here. So if a user is null or a chat is null, render this. But in this case, if a user is not null and the chat is not null, we should be rendering the Chat Engine component. And the reason that we have to do the render logic in a weird way like this is because we're supporting animations, and you'll see exactly how this is all worth it in a few minutes. The last things that we'll need to do is pass chat and user as props. And let's get started. Let's go into the Chat Engine file now. What we'll need to do is import a few things native to React. Of course, we need to import React. Why does it keep doing that? Jeez. Use state as well as use effect. What is it with this? I don't even know. Jeez. There we go. And we also need to pull in some Chat Engine components. So what we're going to do is we're going to run yarn add react -chat -engine. And these are going to be the React UI components that we'll use to build out this chat experience very quickly. So it looks like everything's brought in. So let's start importing. First thing we're going to do is bring in the Chat Engine wrapper. It'll be easier to import if we actually do the from part to start. So React Chat Engine. The next thing that we'll need is a socket. And the last thing that we'll need is the chat feed. Perfect. Now what we can do is start creating this component. So const chat engine equals props, because we'll be using props, return, and we have to start returning JSX. So the first thing that we want to do is return a div that's going to wrap everything and break it. We're going to add the transition5 class name because the animations for hiding the email form are also on transition5. And we're also going to add some style to it. So style, double bracket, styles dot chat engine window, as well as some other things. So in the next style object, we're going to do height, and we're also going to do z index. And what's going to happen here is if this prop is visible, we'll make the height 100%, and we'll make the z index very forward, so ahead of all the other stuff that we've been rendering before. So props.visible 100, otherwise do something like 0. And then in this situation, we'll do props.visible 100%, otherwise 0%. And we should be good on the chat engine window. So when it's set to visible, it's going to expand and occupy the entire screen. The next part is we basically want to render all this stuff if props.visible. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do the chat engine wrapper. So I'll just pull it in because it's a lot to type. And then within it, we're going to pull in the socket. And we're also going to pull in the chat feed. Okay. So for this, we need to set the active chat to that chat's ID. So active chat is equal to chat or props.chat.id. And then for the socket, we're going to have to pass in the 3 prerequisites for authentication. You won't know them, so I'm just going to list them out. Project ID, as well as user name, capital N, as well as user secret with a capital S. And this will be props.user.email. This will also be props.user.email. And this last one is process.env.project ID. I forget exactly what it was, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Cool. So we're making good progress here. The chat engine window, I actually don't think we wrote it out beforehand. So what I'm just going to do is list out all the style for it right now. So I think it's like width 100%, as well as the background color is white. Cool. And we can just delete this. We can actually delete a lot of stuff. Just make it these 2 things here. Cool. And then let's export it. Sweet. So let's see how this looks. bob@mail.com, click enter. Great. The chat engine feed is now here and we can send messages. Super powerful. It takes literally 5 seconds to build the feed. The last thing I just want to do is add a little bit of animation. If we do this again, you'll notice that like when you do bob@mail.com, it kind of just pops up and doesn't wait. So what I'm going to do is just make it delay rendering within 5 seconds. So first thing we're going to do is just do show chat, set show chat equal to use state false. And what this state variable is meant to represent is, are we actually going to show the chat yet? And basically, because we're on a transition 5 or waiting half a second, I want to show the chat just after half a second. So what I'm going to do is use effect for when this first mounts, and basically set a 500 millisecond timer to set this to true, and we'll use this to determine whether or not the chat feed renders. Cool. So let's go use effect, create a function, and within it, we're just going to do a set timeout. of 500 milliseconds, right? So function, set that timer to 500 milliseconds, and then basically set show chat to true. And let's see how this looks. So whoa. Just trying to think. Oh, we should just only do this if props are visible. Because otherwise it's just going to set this to true, and it's throwing a fit because we don't have a user object yet. That's currently null. So if we do that, it looks great. Put bob@mail.com. Now it renders, and it's going to retrieve those messages which we already sent. So a little bit of live troubleshooting there, but this is really, really good. Think about how close we are. We have this little button here. It can talk a little bit about yourself. You click it, you got this nice email form, you bob@mail.com, and you're going to be able to render a new chat or that old chat history so that we don't forget users who visit our website. Very powerful stuff. The last thing we really want to do is focus on that admin panel and build that out, and then our project's really done. So why don't we just go ahead and do that right now? What we're going to do is just go into the admin page and start importing the correct components. So to start, let's import squiggly braces, chat engine from React Chat Engine. This component here is actually really powerful. All it does is it pulls in an entire chat experience right out of the box. So let's just use it, close that tag. We need to use 4 props. So project ID, user name, user secret, and height. So we'll just set the height to start. This will just be calc 100 VH. I'm just going to add a little padding, so 20 px shorter. And then for user secret, my user secret is pass1234. I'm going to delete this anyways. And then I'll just pass in my username, and then that project ID was process.env. Again, I forget, so let's just copy and paste it. And this is going to handle that support chat, right? So Bob has been chatting with me, Adam, and if I go to the support route now, I should be able to see that chat with Bob, and I'm going to be able to send something back. So, hey, how ya doing? In Kel Surprise, if we go here, go back to bob@mail.com, we can see it. Oh, this is a wrong website. I need to go to O. That was a dummy project. So let's go to bob@mail.com. How you doing? And that read receipt comes in. We're chatting with support engine. Boom. Super powerful stuff. You have a full-blown support chat now on your website. Let me know what you think. If you want to, learn more about how you should deploy this website or how you could use a server to basically host this a bit more securely, learn a little bit more about email notifications, which we can actually do. Email notifications are within the website right here. All you have to do is just enable it. So let's just actually do that right now. So adam@supportengine.com, email link. I'll just do this chat engine website and then company name support engine. We do that. Let's actually do this right now. This is really cool. Hey, this actually isn't an email that's valid, but if we go to this one here, this is my valid email. So if I send okay, it's actually not going to deliver because I'm currently online. So I'm going to exit out of that window. But if I do this, that email should deliver. I'm just going to check my phone. I don't want to open up my whole email client. I'll click refresh on my email. And it's there. So there we go. Working chat with email notifications in a customized support window on your website. and really quickly, an admin page just to top it all off so you can chat with multiple users. Really, really awesome stuff. Please let me know what you think. If there are any features that you want to add, like a tip jar or a feedback mechanism within here, or you want to get really sophisticated with the chat, I'm happy to keep building this out. But thanks for putting up with my first YouTube video. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thanks.